All right, welcome back to the B. Dawson Show. I've got the amazing Natalie Workman with me today.
Hello.
Hey, Natalie.
Hi, Brandon.
So let's talk about some of the conversations that we seem to continue to have and will have forever.
This is the 3-step process to better your communication with anybody. That could be an employee, a peer, a friend, your mom,
Or your fiance.
or your fiance. And what's great about this process is once you establish this and really start working through it, you can actually call somebody out on when they do it or when they don't. So like later on, when I'm certain I'm going to call Brandon out for not acknowledging, like he gets it. He's like, oh, you're right. I didn't do part of the process. And then that's where it's clear that the communication is broken down.
What we find with these business owners and all the different engagement we have with them is they create, we just came off our executive program, and so many people in role playing created problems that weren't even there because they assumed, based on what somebody said or asked, that they were going to a place, right? Their reference points are other people in the past have made these comments or these objections or brought these issues up. And so I make the natural jump when someone says, can I ask you a question? And you go straight to, I don't know why you're asking me that, versus, sure, what's your question? And clarifying not only the question, but the actual intent behind the question.
Well, you're such a good communicator naturally. And when people, especially at the executive summit, I don't have the same skill set that you do of just incredible communication. I don't mean to just blow, good sunshine over here.
You just want to know when I'm going to do it at home?
No, that's not true. You're a good communicator at home too, but you have this very innate skill of communication. And what makes me really excited about being able to share this 3-step process is it's not just magic. There is a process. There are 3 steps for how to acknowledge, motivate, and ask, to where you're including the person in the communication, you're shedding a vision, but you're able to include the other person if your communication is starting to derail a little bit.
Yeah, or just even on the front end, like, a lot of this is what I would, if you want to be a remarkable salesperson, or
everybody does,
or a remarkable communicator, you have to first understand contextually what people are saying to you or asking you. And if you don't, you can't properly connect and communicate back in, because you go off, you send the conversation off in some kind of direction that it wasn't originally meant to be.
Yes. So let's get into the process. So I've kind of been teasing it. The 3 steps are
acknowledge, motivate, and ask.
Say it one more time.
Acknowledge, motivate, and ask.
What is our acronym for this?
AMA. And it's how I've taught myself. I created this because I had to teach myself to hang in with people who I'm communicating with, to understand what their true sensitivity is or what they're trying to communicate to me, so that I could properly communicate back, especially when you're dealing with thousands of business owners who have all sorts of different dynamics they're dealing with. And it'd be really easy when someone's starting to go down a certain track to assume where they're actually trying to go as a place you've been before.
And naturally get very defensive. I think most people in their communication, when there's tension or there's an issue that leads to a broken result versus a positive result, there's this turning point. And if you choose to get defensive while somebody is challenging you, the whole conversation derails. And I've always said this about you, your magic, your process, when you enter into a room, you take it upon yourself to make sure that you are the one that's communicating and changing the whole direction of where things need to go. And you use this in order to do this.
And I filter everything people say to me through this, so that I'm not jumping to an improper conclusion or giving poor advice or guidance.
So let's talk about the acknowledge. So step 1, acknowledge. Flesh that out for me.
So the acknowledge component is when somebody says something. And I'll give you an example of what somebody said to me at the retreat. They said, I just can't hire, I'm finding that I just can't hire good employees. Like, good employees are so hard to find. And now you and I both know that people can only succeed to the extent that the leader is giving them clear direction, clear alignment and clear inspiration to go succeed. So when somebody says they can't hire any good people, I already know it's because you're not an effective or inspirational leader.
Well, and your response would not be, yes, you can, even though you know that's the answer. You acknowledged him. I remember this conversation well.
And I said, so I want to make sure I'm hearing you correctly, because here's the thing. People tend to say things that are in their unconscious mind. Like it just is an automatic response, because what you think is what you say is what you do becomes your legacy. So
say that one more time.
What you think about is what you talk about, no matter how much you try to hide it. And what you talk about is ultimately what you do. It's what happens around you or to you or from you. And then all that over your lifetime is ultimately your legacy. So if your legacy is that you can never hire and find and attract great people, you always talk about the fact that you can never hire, attract, and find great people. So therefore, if that's your thought, the moment you might find somebody who's remarkable, you're going to tell them, boy, I sure hope you work out, because I can never hire or find great people. And if I'm a great person, I'm going to look at you and say, well, that's probably because of something you're doing. I don't know that I want to associate with that. And then you take people who actually could be remarkable in your life and you push them all away. But that's the cause and effect, right? So then you continue to reinforce that belief, because the good people aren't going to work with you because you're not the kind of person that would inspire a good person to do it.
So when you're acknowledging somebody, when they're in the process of saying some broken belief, you can acknowledge them. I want to flesh this out. You can acknowledge them by not agreeing with, but restating
and repeating
what they're saying.
Because what if that's not, because I've said that before. I've said, so I want to make sure what I'm hearing you say is that there aren't great people to be hired.
And then you let them either agree or disagree.
Now think about that the way I reframe the question. Instead of saying, so what I'm hearing you say is it's hard to hire or find good people. I'm saying, so I want to make sure I clearly understand what you're saying, because now I'm engaging them. I'm making them think. You're saying there's no good people that can be hired. And what would they say to that? Well, that's not what I said.
Yeah.
Well, that is what they said.
That is what you said.
Because what you didn't say is, I'm spending all my time and energy trying to find that one great person to hire. You said, I can't find or hire any great people.
And there are no great people.
So what you're saying is there's no great people? Or are you saying, because now I can go to the motivation, I can go to the acknowledge what they said, maybe reframe it.
So this is step 2, motivate.
Motivate. So I can say, so Natalie, if you believe there's not great people to be hired, how can you then find people who are looking to work for a great leader?
You asked that in a question, but normally that's a statement, right? Like the motivation piece
it's making a statement, or you
it's like
can
a
ask
rhetorical question.
Rhetorical question. So if there's no great people,
it's a rhetorical, motivational question around the original objection or the point of contention.
That's exactly right. I probably would say, what if, Natalie, so I'm hearing you, so I acknowledge, I'm hearing what you're saying. There's no great people.
I love that phrase as a acknowledge phrase. I'm hearing what you're saying.
I'm hearing what you're
saying. Not agreeing. I hear what you say.
But what if there was a great person out there to be hired who could help you achieve your dreams? How would you find that person? Like, that's a question. Or how would they find you? Like, getting them to switch their thinking, because what they were saying is, I can't find anybody. What you want them to get to talk about is, what would you need to do differently to attract that person? And then you can ask the question.
Which is step 3. Ask is step 3.
Ask the question. That's where I'd actually say, so let me re-say this. So acknowledge what they said, and then the motivator would be, many business owners I've worked with in the past have felt the same way. But after changing how they approached that thought, they were able to attract remarkable people into their business. So that would be the motivator. Then the question I would ask them is, if you changed your perspective and if you changed your mindset and found a way to attract remarkable people into your business, is that something you'd want to learn how to do? And what would a business owner say?
Well, yes, of course I'd want to learn how to do that.
Exactly. So the ask is what I heard you say.
Yep.
Or to clarify, this is what I'm hearing you say.
No, acknowledge.
Acknowledge.
Yep.
The second is a motivator. I've heard it's a great question, or it's a great comment, or it's a comment I hear all the time. In fact, many business owners had the same mindset, but when they learned the skills to attract great people, they were able to do it. Now my question, Natalie, is that a skill set you'd like to learn?
Can we do this in another situation? Because
Sure.
I love fleshing this out in other areas. What other AMA situation do you want to role play with me, Brandon Dawson?
Anything. Do you come up with it?
How about, should I be an employee?
Sure.
Okay. How about the issue is that I am not submitting my reports on time?
So we are sitting there, and I'm acknowledging how about an objection? Like that's a
So how about I say
conversation.
why I can't submit my reports on time? Well, do you want to ask me like what I'm supposed to be doing?
So hey, Natalie, last week when we met, we had talked about these tasks that had to get done by Friday every single week. Today's Tuesday, and I just wanted to check in with you because I didn't see them. Did you get that stuff done on Friday?
I didn't get that stuff done. I, just had other things that I needed to do. I needed to go take my mom and get her into care, and my kids to the nursery, and it's just like I'm sorry, I forgot.
So Natalie, I just want to make sure I understand what I'm hearing you say is that you did not prioritize what we agreed to on Friday, that you were going to get these things done.
I just didn't prioritize it.
So the motivate, right? So Natalie, when we talked about the importance on behalf of your personal, professional, financial goals and the importance and significance to the business of you doing that and doing it timely, do you remember that conversation?
Yeah, I think so.
Now I'm going to do the ask. So Natalie, what did we talk about would be the consequences for you and for the business if it didn't get done?
Well, I know if I don't do those things correctly every single time, we talked about me not having a job here.
Exactly. So now I'm going to circle back because here's the deal. I want to be crystal clear what our conversation was. I want to acknowledge what you said, but to really acknowledge what you said, I'm going to go back now and say, on Friday, you had mentioned the kids, and we had talked about your babysitter service and timeliness with that. And we've made some compromises for you. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, so what I also heard you say is that you had to take your mother to the hospital or to the clinic. Is everything okay?
Yeah, she's okay.
Okay, perfect. So I'm not missing the fact that you made a comment, and you could have been using it as an excuse, or you could have been using it as but I want to get in this particular case, I want to get what we agreed on, right? But think of it as an objection. When you're working with a customer and they come in and you go through this whole process with them and they say, I want to think about it. So
So we're switching role plays. So it's, I would love to do that one and be a little harder on you because I think your skills in being able to pin somebody to this whole acknowledge, motivate, ask is like where the magic is.
yes, and it's hard to do that when you're on a podcast, but
No, you're killing it.
when somebody comes in and gives you an objection and you're sitting there talking to them, why would they give you an objection? What would be the natural reasons? Maybe they're just a shopper. Like, you ever see anybody walk through a store and somebody says, "Can I help you?" And you're like, "No." You're like, "Okay," right? So what happens when you're in business and somebody's engaging you and then you say, "Great." And Grant always says, is there more information you need, or is there any more information you need to make the decision to move forward? And if somebody says, "Well, I'm just not ready yet," right? Under that scenario, you would have to acknowledge that. Okay, so what I'm hearing you say is you're not ready to move forward. So many of my customers thought the same thing until they did make the decision, and here was the result. If you could achieve that kind of result, is that something you'd like more information on, or something you'd like to do, right? So you're acknowledging it you're making a motivating statement, and then you're asking a question. And to me, I know this is a interesting visualization, but I think of the tractor going down the combine. It's just combining into the tractor, right? Like all conversations are like this. It just keeps turning and stuff just keeps coming through, right? Mm-hmm. The goal, though, is to move it to a conclusion. So asking the question, Natalie, what other information would you need to make or would you need to have in order to make the decision? Or asking the question, is there any more information you need to move forward that would help you move forward? Any kind of question at the end is going to get another response versus just leave it hanging. I've seen people acknowledge, oh man, yeah, a lot of our customers come in and say the same thing. Where's that going to take me?
I don't know.
What's the customer going to say if they say, well, I was thinking about this, but I'm still thinking about it. And I say, yeah, and I acknowledge it. Yeah. Now, many of our customers come in here and say the same thing.
The customer's not going to buy.
They're going to move on.
Yeah.
But once they did make the decision and move forward, they came back and said, we're so sorry it took so long to do it. That was so amazing.
That's the motivate part.
That's the motivate part. Mm-hmm. And ask, if you made the decision today and you had this experience, would you feel that was a good decision or a bad decision? And what are they going to say?
It's a good decision.
Or you do what Grant says. Is there any other information you would need to make the decision? Right? What have I not provided to you for you to choose to move forward? And if you don't, it doesn't mean every time someone's going to say yes, but if you just leave people hanging, which is what I see in communication. I see it with employees. I see it with customer engagements. I see it. It's like leaving conversations open-ended because you can't ask for the hard question.
Well, for a lot of people, putting my, I've struggled with this before. So if I put that hat on and not have thought through this from a practice standpoint in the same way that you do, a lot of people only stop at the acknowledge part because they've never practiced or role played the motivate and the ask. Like, okay, what are the list of objections? How do you acknowledge that? Good, you're making the first step with like the customer situation that you said. But then we need to come up with, as a business, what the motivate piece, what statistics you need in order to motivate, what pieces of information and data, and then what are the key questions to ask to be able to turn and pivot that conversation. And a lot of times people just don't.
They don't do it because you're 100% correct. If I owned a business, which I do,
yes,
and I wanted to know what the top, every time I had an employee give me an objection, I'd write it down, and I would create my top employee objections. And I would literally take this AMA structure and I would role play those objections in front of my phone. The employee objects to something. I'm going to acknowledge it. I'm going to motivate, and I'm going to ask the employee a question. If you have things like personal, professional, financial goals, this is a great hook. If they're continually late and they come in and you say, I noticed you were late today, and they say, yeah, my car broke down, then I can acknowledge it. So what I'm hearing you say is that your car broke down. Motivate. Do you remember when we had a conversation about your personal, professional, financial goals and how you could buy a new car if you did these things that you agreed to do? And then ask, what do we need to do to ensure that you can get that new car by you doing the things you committed to do for the business? Because this is the second time, and what did we agree would happen on the third time?
Bye-bye.
So you're going to complicate your car troubles because you won't have a paycheck. Right? So I'm trying to help you. Right.
But it's so clear. Like I laugh because it's so clear, and most people cannot think in such clear terms. Here is the issue. This is what we've talked about. We've set these expectations. If this doesn't happen, this is the consequence. Like this is. I was telling somebody at the executive summit, people don't think of engaging their team and running their business. Actually, this woman said this to me, as being a parent and having clear, it's like some parents just decide to let their kids go do whatever they want to do. Other parents that typically have success with raising, kids that contribute to society and have good jobs and good friends and, have moved on with their life, have a very clear list of this is what happens.
The structure.
Yeah, this is the expectation. If this doesn't happen, this is going to happen. And if we get to step 2 or step 3 where you've not done these things,
consequences.
You're going to have a consequence. And it's like it's an easy process, and filtering through as an organization, having those clearly laid out from a business standpoint is something that a lot of times business owners forget about. But then they can't feel like they can hold their team members accountable.
Yeah. So here, let's give everybody some work. So here's what you do. If you have a team of 3, 4, 5, or 10 people, grab your 3 highest contributors in different places of the business and sit down with them and say, let's write down every single objection we get from our customers. Let's just write it down. And then let's find a way to acknowledge the customer's concern. And first of all, the A part, acknowledge, is to be sure that what people are thinking they're hearing are actually the concerns. People won't make decisions because they're not in a hurry. They're not worried about something. They maybe don't have the money. They're just passively interested, or they need permission from somebody else to make a decision. So if I'm sitting here having a conversation with a customer, I want to understand which is it of those concerns that they're addressing, so I know how to communicate with them. So in the AMA process, write down, okay, here's the list of objections. What is the best way to understand what somebody said, or what somebody was saying or intended? This is a filter. So how could you acknowledge what the person said? Then what kind of motivating statement could you make? It's like if I'm in the used car area or in the service area, and some customer comes in and we're selling extended plans, I could ask and say to the customer, hey, would you like this extended plan? And they say, nah, I don't really need it. So what I'm hearing you say is, and in this case, if you're smart about how you structure your business, what I'm hearing you say is you'd rather pay more over the next 5 years to service your car than be on our plan, which would allow you to pay less. Acknowledge. No, that's not what I said. What I said is I'm moving out of the country, I'm moving out of the state, and I won't be living here. Oh, okay, now I understand what I'm talking about. But if they say, no, then you say motivate. Many of our customers felt the same way, but they realized the savings they were going to get by buying the plan, and they're disappointed over time when they didn't do it because they're like, I should have done it. Ask, if we could save you a whole lot of money over the next 5 years and you can have a sense of security that if anything goes wrong with your car, it is fully taken care of on this plan, would you feel good about that decision? Like, just ask the darn question, or what other information do you need to make a decision move forward, right?
I love asking a hard question.
The harder your questions, if you ask a hard question, this is my opinion, if you go straight to a hard question, you haven't acknowledged what they said, sometimes you could be asking the wrong hard question.
That's true.
So I like to understand what people really, plus when you perfect the AMA process, and you acknowledge, you can reframe their comment in a way where they actually have to hear themselves.
Which is sometimes scary for people because they don't know what they're saying.
They'll stop and they'll look me straight in the eyes and say, no, that's not what I said. And say, okay, then can you please ask me your question again? Because that's what I heard.
But that's how they're speaking to their customers. That's how they're speaking to their team members. They have no idea that that's the way that they're engaging.
Man, the best thing I ever did is listed objections from business owners when I launched my first business, put a video camera, the old video camera, I'd set it in front of me, and I would do this in my head, and then I'd say, well, here's my answer, or here's my question.
You'd role play with yourself.
I'd role play with myself until I felt like I had a really good rhythm.
Yeah.
And if you do that with your team, so write down your objections. How do you acknowledge those objections? How do you ask a motivating question, and then how do you make a motivating statement, and then ask a really hard or good question to clarify. And if you do that with your team, and then you sit and you role play it with each other until where it just feels like it's coming off the tip of my tongue, the whole team will be more confident, and you'll do a lot more business.
Well, and if you're nervous to do this with your team because you want to practice your skills and make sure that you're sharp first, this is one of the things that we go through at Cardone Ventures and at our 2-day executive summit. So, I mean, they should come and role play with us, and he's the master. So if you can role play with him, being able to role play in any other scenario with your team members, with your customers, it's like cakewalk.
And
easy.
We've taught this concept to thousands of people. And if you want to take if you want to take salespeople, non-salespeople, and because every person that works in your business, this is another fallacy of business owners. Every single person that works in your business at every single level is a salesperson for the business. And if you don't think that, and you don't treat them that way, and you don't give them that love and respect and understand and they don't understand exactly how to best represent you in the community, they are representing you in the community. And if you're spending all this money in marketing and you want to make sure that you get the value of that, then treat everyone like they're your best and most valued salesperson and make sure they understand how to best represent the organization in the community. Then when people come in and object to something, you've already drill practiced and rehearsed that with the whole team, and so it's automatic what the response is. And if you say, that's a great question, it's one we get all the time, take the pressure away, right? Acknowledge. Great question, Natalie. It's one we get all the time. Motivator. In fact, most of our customers have said that until they experience this. And then once they experience this, they wish they hadn't waited all those years to have the benefit.
Yeah.
If we could create this benefit for you, Natalie, what other information would you need to move forward? Like it's a yes or no, but at least you're getting there versus, oh yeah, we hear that all the time. Thanks for coming. And leaving it hanging. So come to Cardone Ventures.
Go to CardoneVentures.com if you want to
CardoneVentures.com.
actually role play with this guy and
Yes.
and really sharpen your skill set.
The B. Dawson Show. I love role play. That's my mantra. Thank you for joining us. Natalie, thank you for helping me on the B. Dawson Show.
Thank you for having me.